My blood brother Mason betrayed me in the dark, whispering secrets that shattered our bond, but I'm bringing his secrets to light one painful reveal at a time. I was closing up my night shift at the Chicago hospital, wiping down counters in the empty ward, when my phone buzzed like a warning. It was Mason, his voice shaking on the line, begging to crash at my apartment. "Elena, I'm in trouble. Bad trouble," he said, not explaining more. Against my better judgment, I agreed, thinking family stuck together no matter what. We'd been inseparable as kids in our small Midwestern town, two against the world after Dad left, me at 10 protecting him at 8 from bullies and bad dreams. Now at 32, as a nurse patching up strangers' wounds, I figured I could handle his mess. He showed up hours later, banging on my door past midnight. When I let him in, his shirt was smeared with crimson stains, dark and sticky under the hallway light. "What happened?" I gasped, but he pushed past, collapsing on the couch. That was the night everything began to unravel, his eyes hiding storms I couldn't yet see. Just before you continue to watch, Feminine Revenge would like you to subscribe to this channel and like this video. It would encourage us to keep this streak of thrilling revenge stories for you to watch. Alright, back to the story. When Mason walked in that night, I noticed the crimson smears on his collar and sleeve right away, dark patches that looked too fresh to ignore. He claimed it was just a bar fight, nothing serious, but his hands trembled as he peeled off his jacket, avoiding my eyes. I pressed him for details, my nurse instincts kicking in. "Let me clean that up, see if you need stitches." But he dodged every question, snapping, "Drop it, Elena. Not your business." Something in his eyes made me realize he wasn't telling me the whole truth. They darted like cornered animals, hiding layers of guilt. As he crashed on my couch, snoring within minutes, I paced the kitchen, doubt churning like acid in my gut. My brother, once my protector against Dad's absence, now felt like a stranger slipping into danger. The next morning, as he gulped coffee like nothing happened, I spotted a torn hospital wristband peeking out of his pocket. White plastic, smudged but clear. Why would he have that? He grabbed it quickly when he saw me looking, stuffing it away with a forced laugh. I recognized the wristband design peeking from Mason's pocket the next morning as he gulped coffee like nothing happened. It was from the same hospital where I worked as a nurse in Chicago. The blue stripe and font screamed familiarity, twisting my gut like a wet rag squeezed tight. Why would he have that? He wasn't hurt. No cuts matched the blood on his shirt. When I reached for it casually, saying, "What's this?" he grabbed it quick as a snake strike, stuffing it deep in his jeans. "Just a friend's, dropped it off last night," he muttered, eyes darting away like a kid caught with candy. But his fingers shook, and the lie hung heavy as fog in the kitchen. I knew right then he was hiding something rotten, deeper than a bar fight. My brother, once my shield against school bullies after Dad left, now felt like a wall-blocking truth. The unease clawed at me all day at work, patience beeps echoing my racing heart. I couldn't shake it. Something tied him to my world in ways that screamed danger. And the name printed on the band wasn't his, it was a woman's, faint but clear. Daphne Lowell. The name read Daphne Lowell on that torn wristband I'd glimpsed before Mason snatched it away, and it burned in my mind like a brand on skin. I didn't know her, no patient for my shifts, no family friend, but when I asked him point blank over breakfast, "Who's Daphne?" his face hardened like concrete setting fast. "Nobody you need to worry about," he snapped, begging me not to tell anyone I'd seen it, his voice dropping low with a plea that rang false. My brother, who once protected me from nightmares after Dad vanished, now looked like a stranger with secrets too heavy to carry, his eyes shadowed and evasive. The unease gnawed at me like teeth on bone. I couldn't let it go, not with blood stains fresh in memory and his lies stacking like cards ready to tumble. All day at the hospital, charts blurred as I obsessed. Who is she? Why the band? Why the panic? I snuck a peek at records during lunch, fingers flying over the keyboard. And the next morning, Daphne's name appeared in the hospital's trauma records, admitted late that night with injuries that matched no bar fight. At the following dinner a week later, The family crammed around Franklin's long table, plates heaped with roast and gravy, laughter bouncing off the walls like echoes in a cave. He sat at the head, glass raised in a toast, already tipsy from too much wine, his cheeks flushed red. I had the recorder clipped hidden on my collar, tiny but ready. Midway through the meal, he leaned too close as he passed the salt, his breath hot on my neck, whispering disgusting comments about my body. "You've got curves that could make a man forget his vows, Naomi." His words slithered low and slurred, every syllable caught crisp on tape, while everyone else laughed at a joke from across the table, oblivious to the poison. I held my poker face, nodding politely as though nothing was wrong, forcing a smile that tasted bitter as bile. But inside, power surged through me like electricity in wires. I had my first piece of ammunition, solid proof of the monster behind his respected mask. As plates cleared, he patted my back too long, thinking he was safe. And then, fate handed me an even bigger weapon, hidden just out of sight. While helping Angela clean up after dinner, stacking sticky plates in the sink under the kitchen's warm light, I accidentally spotted Franklin's unlocked laptop glowing in his office across the hall. He was outside chatting with guests, his laugh booming through the window. Curiosity pulled me like a string. Angela had mentioned his private space before, but tonight the door stood ajar. My hands shook as I slipped in, turning the key she gave me earlier for extra towels. Inside, the smell of old smoke and sweat clung to the walls like bad memories, the air thick and stale. Papers scattered the desk, but on the table sat a blood-stained wallet, leather cracked and dark smears crusted on the edge. I flipped it open with trembling fingers. ID inside belonged to Daphne Lowell, her photo smiling back innocent and young. My breath caught, this tied to the wristband, the blood on his shirt that night. Why her wallet here, stained like evidence from a crime? I snapped photos quick, heart hammering like a drum in my chest. This wasn't just whispers. It was proof of something violent, hidden in his den. Mason confessed it all in a rush that night, his voice low and jagged as he paced my living room, the shadows from the lamp stretching like accusing fingers on the walls. Daphne was my ex-girlfriend, he said, slumping onto the couch like the weight finally broke him. We got into a fight, bad one. I didn't mean to hurt her, Elena. It just got out of hand, you know? She pushed me. I pushed back harder. My stomach flipped like a car skidding on ice. This wasn't a bar fight with some stranger. It was domestic violence, raw and ugly, the kind that leaves marks deeper than bruises. I realized the blood on his shirt wasn't his. It was hers, smeared from whatever he'd done in the dark. His eyes pleaded for understanding, but all I saw was the monster emerging from my brother's skin, the protector from our childhood twisted into something vile. He rambled on, justifying it as a mistake, his hands gesturing wild. But I recorded every word on my phone behind my back, tucked in my pocket, the red light blinking silent as a heartbeat. He thought I was his safe harbor. He had no idea the storm was building. That night, after Mason crashed on my couch snoring like nothing happened, I created a hidden folder on my laptop, labeled Taxes 2020, to blend in with boring files no one would touch. Inside, I placed the recording of his confession, every slurred word about Daphne saved as audio gold, along with her hospital records I'd snapped photos of at work. My fingers flew over the keys, password protecting it tight as a vault, my heart still racing from his admission. Mason thought I was still his loyal sister, the one who'd covered for him since we were kids hiding from Dad's absence, but I was building a case brick by brick, something solid to shatter his lies. I couldn't forgive him, not this time, not after seeing the blood, hearing the excuses that rang hollow as empty promises. Sleep evaded me, the laptop's glow casting shadows like ghosts in my room. But Mason borrowed my laptop the next day, casual as asking for coffee. Mind if I check email quick? Mine's dead. I handed it over with a smile, but inside, fear twisted. Would he find the folder? When I got home that evening, my laptop sat on the coffee table, screen dark like it was hiding something shameful. My stomach sank like a stone in deep water. I'd left it charging that morning, folder tucked safe with the recordings and files. But as I flipped it open, heart thumping loud in my ears, the hidden Taxes 2020 folder stared back empty, every audio clip, every photo of Daphne's records, gone like they'd never existed. Deleted clean, no trace left. Mason lounged on my couch, sipping a beer with that smug grin plastered on like he owned the world. "Find something interesting?" he asked, eyes twinkling with mock innocence. "Don't play detective, sis. You'll lose every time." The words hit like a slap, his casual cruelty confirming he'd snooped, wiped it all while I was at work patching up strangers' wounds. Rage boiled under my skin, hot as fresh blood, but I forced a shrug, pretending defeat. He laughed, thinking he'd won, clueless to my backup plan. But what he didn't know, I had already backed everything up to the cloud that morning, safe in digital shadows he couldn't touch. The next morning, as I stepped out of the hospital after a grueling shift, rubbing my tired eyes against the harsh sun, a young woman approached me in the parking lot. She looked about my age, hair pulled back tight, face pale with worry lines etching deep. "Elena? I'm Claire, Daphne's sister," she said, her voice low and urgent, glancing over her shoulder like shadows followed. My throat tightened like a noose pulling slow. She said she knew Mason had something to do with Daphne's injuries, that the bruises on her arms weren't from any fall, like he'd claimed. "No one believes me. The cops say it's not enough," she whispered, eyes pleading. "But you're his sister. You know him." The words hit home, stirring the storm inside me. Finally, someone else saw what I saw, the monster behind his charm. We talked quick in my car, her hands shaking as she shared photos of Daphne's old texts, threats from Mason, pleas for help. Claire slipped me a note with an address before darting away. "Meet me here tomorrow. I have more." My pulse raced. What else did she know? The address Claire slipped me led to a dingy apartment downtown, the kind with peeling paint and buzzing fluorescent lights in the hall that flickered like bad omens. She explained it was where Mason used to stash things he didn't want anyone to find. Cash, papers, maybe more. "He thinks no one knows about it," she whispered, handing me a spare key she'd swiped years ago. My hands shook as I turned it in the lock, the door creaking open to a stale room smelling of old smoke and sweat clinging to the walls like guilt. Dust motes danced in the dim light from a single bulb, furniture sparse, a sagging couch, a table cluttered with takeout boxes. Claire hung back by the door, eyes darting nervous. I stepped in, heart pounding like footsteps in an empty house, scanning for clues. On the table, I found a blood-stained wallet, leather cracked and dark smears crusted like accusations. I flipped it open. ID inside showed Daphne's face, smiling from better days. My breath caught. This tied him to her attack, proof he couldn't explain away. I pocketed it quick, but Claire's voice broke the silence. "What is that?" Inside Daphne's blood-stained wallet was a flash drive taped to a crumpled receipt, hidden like a secret too hot to hold. I pocketed it quickly before Claire could see, my fingers brushing the sticky leather as I stuffed it in my jeans. "Nothing important," I muttered, but my mind raced. What was on it? At home that night, after bolting the door twice, I plugged it into my laptop, praying it wasn't corrupted or password locked. The screen lit up with folders, dates, names, photos popping open like Pandora's box. What made me nauseous wasn't just the shots of Mason meeting shady men in dark alleys, envelopes of cash exchanging hands under tables, thick stacks of bills, faces hidden but his watch gleaming familiar. No, it was the proof of deeper rot. Wire transfers to offshore accounts, emails plotting scams with codes like "move the package tonight." My brother wasn't just violent. He was running with criminals, a web of fraud and deals that could bury him, and me if tied too close. The last folder was labeled Elena, my name staring back like a threat from the screen. I uploaded the audio of Mason's disgusting comments onto a private forum where whistleblowers shared stories, my fingers hovering over the submit button before I hit it in the dead of night. The clip was short but sharp, his slurred whispers about my body from that family dinner caught clear as glass on my recorder. No names attached, just "Respected Family Man Unmasked" as the title. It spread quickly, comments flooding in like a storm tide. Strangers dissecting his tone, his arrogance, calling him a creep hiding behind charm. "This guy's toast if exposed," one wrote. "Bet there's more victims," another added. Though his identity wasn't public yet, I knew it was only a matter of time before someone pieced it together. His Chicago accent, the family vibe in the background. Mason started acting paranoid at our next dinners, snapping at waiters over spilled water, pacing during conversations like a man hearing footsteps behind him. His charm cracked, eyes darting suspicious, as if shadows whispered back. He was cracking under the weight of invisible eyes, and I watched from across the table, my secret like fire in my pocket. Then he tried to corner me again, but this time, I was ready. Mason grabbed my arm after a family barbecue at Mom's, the smoke from grilled burgers still hanging in the air as he dragged me into the garage away from the fading laughter. His grip bruised like iron clamps, face twisted with rage, and too much beer. He hissed close, breath sour. "I know what you're doing, spreading lies about me online. Stop, or you'll regret it. I'll make sure you lose everything, job, friends, all of it." His threat echoed in the dim space, meant to scare me silent like it had before. But I stared him down, unflinching, and whispered back, "I already regret ever trusting you," my voice steady as a heartbeat. In one quick move, I slipped my phone from my pocket and held it up, recording the entire threat, the red light blinking like an accusing eye. He froze mid-snarl, eyes widening as realization hit like a slap. He'd just handed me another nail for his coffin, his own words twisting the knife deeper. He released me, stumbling back, but the damage burned permanent. That night, I sent the clip to Angela, attaching a note. "Listen to your husband. Really listen." He didn't come inside my bedroom that night, just stood there in the doorway like a shadow with eyes, watching me in the dark while my heart hammered against my ribs. I pretended to sleep, keeping my breaths even and slow, though every muscle screamed to run. The floor creaked under his weight as he lingered, his silhouette blocking the hallway light like a monster from childhood nightmares. When he finally turned and left, footsteps fading down the hall, I sat up shaking, sweat cold on my skin. That was the moment I decided I wouldn't just expose him with a quick call to the cops or a family blow-up. No, I'd destroy him completely, tear down every lie he'd built, make him feel the isolation he'd forced on me. My blood brother had crossed into something evil, and mercy wasn't an option anymore. Hands still trembling, I grabbed my phone and dialed Claire, Daphne's sister, my voice a whisper in the quiet apartment. "I have evidence, photos, recordings, everything. But we need to act fast before he suspects." She breathed sharp on the other end. "I'm in. What's the plan?" We talked till dawn, plotting his end. Living with Mason turned every day into a nightmare I couldn't wake from, his presence like poison seeping through the walls of my Chicago apartment. He used my shower without asking, leaving wet towels on the floor like he owned the place, ate my food straight from the fridge with grunts instead of thanks, and sat on my couch scrolling his phone like a king on a throne. But I smiled through it all, playing the role of loyal sister with good morning greetings and fresh coffee, my face a mask hiding the storm inside. He thought I was clueless, rambling about his plans, while I documented everything in secret, his shady calls at midnight, emails pinging on his laptop when he stepped out, his late-night disappearances where he'd slip away after I fell asleep. Notes piled up on my hidden app, timestamps like nails in his coffin. Tension coiled tight as a spring, every creak in the floor making me jump. One night, as he stumbled and drunk and passed out, he left behind a duffel bag by the door, zipper half open, stuffed with cash that spilled like dirty secrets onto the rug. I accidentally left my flash drive at Dylan's apartment after a cousin's night out, slipping it into his couch cushions when he turned to grab beers from the fridge. On it were the recordings of Franklin's disgusting whispers, the financial spreadsheets screaming fraud, even the garage threat caught fresh and raw. I drove home that night with my heart pounding like a drum in a silent room, wondering if he'd find it or if fate would bury it deeper. Days later, Dylan called me, his voice shaking like a leaf in a gale over the phone. "Naomi, what the hell is this? He confronted me at a coffee shop the next morning, face pale as fresh snow, hands trembling as he clutched the drive. "Dad he wouldn't do this," he stammered, eyes wide with disbelief at the filth pouring from the audio. Threats, assaults, hidden money. He hated me for showing him the ugly truth, for shattering his hero dad into shards. "How could you?" he yelled, tears breaking free. But as the evidence sank in, his hate shifted like sand in wind. He hated me for ripping off the blindfold, but he hated his father more, the pedestal crumbling to dust under betrayal's weight. Word spread through the siblings like wildfire after Dylan shared the flash drive with his sisters, the audio and files igniting fury that leaped from phone to phone in frantic calls. Franklin's daughters stopped answering his calls, their voices turning to ice when he begged for chats, screens going dark mid-ring like slammed doors. Dylan moved out that week, bags packed in a rush, crashing at a friend's without a backward glance. At family dinners once full of laughter and overflowing plates, chairs sat empty like ghosts haunting the table, the air thick with unspoken accusations and sidelong glances. Franklin tried to maintain his booming voice and hearty laugh, slapping backs and pouring drinks like the king he thought he was, but his eyes darted nervously, scanning faces for cracks in loyalty like a captain sensing mutiny on his ship. His once commanding presence shrunk like a balloon losing air, deflated and small under the weight of stares. He was losing control, his grip slipping like sand through fingers, the family he'd ruled fracturing piece by painful piece. And then the IRS came knocking, their audit hitting like a hammer on fragile glass. Mason barged into Daphne's hospital room like a storm crashing through a door, his face twisted with rage when he saw me at her bedside, holding her hand as she whispered about his attacks. The beeps of machines spiked with attention, her eyes widening in fear as he pointed at me. "What the hell are you doing here?" he snarled, voice echoing off the sterile walls. He accused me of turning on him, of spreading lies to break him, his fists clenched like he might lunge. Nurses peeked in, but he ignored them, ranting about family loyalty and how I'd regret meddling. Daphne shrank back in her bed, sheets pulled tight, but I stayed calm, my hand steady on hers. "The truth's coming out, Mason," I said softly, my voice even as a flatline. He leaned close, breath hot with fury. "You think you can ruin me? I'll bury you first." His threats spilled like poison from a cracked vial, but he had no idea my phone was recording every word from my pocket. As security dragged him out kicking and yelling, I knew this wasn't over. He was cornered, and cornered men are dangerous, lashing out wild before the end. That night, after security hauled Mason away from Daphne's room, he left a note on my pillow back home, slipped in somehow during the chaos, his handwriting scrawled like claws on paper. "Pick a side, Elena. Yours or mine. You know what happens to traitors." The words chilled me like ice water down my back, his threat hanging heavy in the quiet apartment. I burned the note in the sink, watching flames curl the edges black, but the message seared into my mind. He was watching closer than I thought, slipping past locks like a ghost with bad intentions. My hand shook as I double-bolted the door, fear twisting my gut like a knot I couldn't untie. But the breaking point had come. I decided it was time to end this. No more hiding in shadows. Hands still trembling, I texted Claire. "We strike now. Meet me tomorrow." We devised a plan over burner phones, luring him into thinking I was still on his side while gathering the final nails for his coffin. Mason thought I was weak, but he'd forgotten I knew how to stitch wounds and how to cut deep, precise as a surgeon's blade. I burned the note in my bathroom sink that night, watching the paper curl black and crumble to ash under the faucet's rush, smoke stinging my eyes like unshed tears. The words, "pick a side," vanished, but the threat lingered like smoke in clothes. Hands still shaking, I doubled the locks on my doors and windows, chaining them tight, as if that could keep Mason's darkness out. He was escalating, slipping notes like a ghost through cracks, but I wouldn't run. I told Claire over an encrypted app. The net was tightening around him, his paranoia our best ally. "We need to go big," I typed. We contacted a journalist known for exposing corruption in Chicago, a woman named Kara who toppled bigger fish than Mason. Sending her the files piece by piece, audio clips first, then photos of the cash, the surveillance shots, she bit hard. "This is gold," she messaged back. Mason had no idea the story was about to go public. His secrets splashed across headlines like blood on white walls. But the journalist asked me to wear a wire for final confirmation, to catch him confessing live. My pulse raced. Could I pull it off without him sniffing the trap? My heart thundered like a freight train in my chest as I slipped the tiny device under my sweater that evening, the wire cold against my skin like a secret too heavy to hold. Kara had taped it secure, instructions clear. Get him talking, keep him drunk, stay calm. Over dinner at my kitchen table, pasta I barely tasted. Mason opened up after his third beer, arrogant as ever, boasting about his wins. "Daphne? She pushed too hard, had to teach her a lesson," he slurred, laughing like it was a joke. Then the money. Those deals pay big, cash under tables, no traces. Even the surveillance on me. "Had to watch you, sis. You ask too many questions." Every word was captured on the wire, crisp and damning, feeding straight to Kara's van parked down the block. I kept nodding, forcing smiles, praying my hands didn't shake on the fork. He leaned back, smug as a cat with cream, clueless to the noose tightening. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed like a predator sensing blood. He leaned in close, breath hot, and asked, "Why are you shaking, Elena? Got something to hide?" I excused myself from the dinner table, saying I was tired after a long shift, my voice steady though my knees felt like jelly under his narrowed gaze. He watched me walk to my bedroom, suspicion heavy as lead in his eyes, like a wolf sensing weakness in prey. I locked the door behind me with a soft click, leaning against it to catch my breath, the wire still taped cold against my skin. My fingers flew over my phone, texting the journalist. Got it all, his full confession on tape. She replied instant, sending backup now. Stay safe. Minutes later, sirens wailed outside like banshees in the night, blue lights flashing through my curtains. My chest tightened like a vice. Was this it, the end of his games? Pounding fists hammered the front door, voices shouting, "Police! Open up!" Mason's roar echoed from the living room. What the hell? I cracked my door just enough to see. Officers bursting in, badges gleaming, tackling him to the floor as he swung wild. Handcuffs clicked like final locks on his lies. He twisted, eyes finding mine in the hall, betrayal burning hot. "You," he snarled. But I didn't flinch. The trap had sprung. The courtroom was packed tight as a sardine can, cameras flashing like lightning in a storm as the prosecution unveiled photos of Daphne's bruises, my recordings blasting through speakers, her weak testimony from the stand painting Mason as the monster he was. The air hummed with gasps from the gallery, jurors leaning forward like they smelled blood. Mason's mask finally cracked wide open. He wasn't the misunderstood brother pleading innocence anymore. He was a violent criminal slumping in his chair, face pale as he heard his own threats replayed, his boasts about cash deals echoing hollow in the room. He glared at me from the defendant's table, eyes full of hate like daggers aimed straight at my heart, mouthing "traitor" when the judge looked away. But I didn't flinch, sitting straight in my witness seat, my voice steady as I confirmed every detail. The prosecution rested, the room buzzing like angry bees. The judge asked if I had any final words to share before deliberation, his gavel hovering like fate's hammer. I stood, throat tight, ready to speak the truth that would seal his cage forever. I stood tall in that packed Chicago courtroom, my voice steady as a heartbeat under storm, speaking words that had burned in me for months. Blood doesn't make someone family.
Choices do.
And Mason chose darkness, lies, violence, a trail of broken people he thought he could bury. Gasps rippled through the gallery like wind through dry leaves, jurors shifting in their seats, the judge's gavel hovering like a final judgment. Mason sat cuffed at the defense table, his face twisted in rage, eyes boring into mine like daggers from the brother who'd once shared my childhood secrets. The prosecution rested, the defense floundered. The judge sentenced him to decades behind bars, 20 years minimum, his respected life stripped like paint from rotting wood. As guards led him away, chains clinking like broken promises, he mouthed one last threat. "This isn't over." But for me, it was. For the first time in years, since that blood-stained night, I could breathe again, air filling my lungs clean and free. My story wasn't just revenge anymore. It was light-piercing shadows, a warning to others hiding in the dark. But deep down, I wondered, what other secrets had Mason buried that I never uncovered? The thought lingered like a chill in the bone. If you enjoyed the story, make sure to like this video, comment, and smash the subscribe button. Also check out other videos on the channel. Feminine Revenge has got more thrilling stories for you.